Hello, Queens. This is your girl, Coco Moore, coming at you with another episode of Queen's Corner Podcast. And this is episode 4, titled Be Your Own Cheerleader. In this episode, I'm going to be discussing how to advocate for yourself when nobody is advocating for you. Do you find it hard to have a support system? Do you find it hard for people to have your back? Do you find it hard for people to relate to you? Do you have a hard time finding, just that backbone, that support that you need when no one is around? It's very important to keep in mind that even when you're going through storms, trials, tribulations, that everything that you need, God has already given it to you. Sometimes you're looking for support, and that support may come from the wrong people who may have the wrong intentions. And sometimes, when we're looking for support, it may be for other reasons. But I want to encourage those who are listening that it is very, very important that you have a support system, whether it be your friends, someone in your inner circle. It could be someone from church or in your community. It could be your own counselor, your therapist, anyone that you feel that you can trust and can talk to about whatever it is that you're going through. Maybe you have a goal in mind. Maybe you have a dream that you want to come to fruition. Maybe you have, some things that you want to discuss that you're going through or struggling on your own, some setbacks that you may, are going through even right now in this season, and you just need someone to have a listening ear. You need advice, you need wisdom. So I want to talk about what is a support system. What does that look like? A support system is people around you, people close to you that basically will be there for you. Meaning they're going to tell you the truth even when you don't want to hear it. And make sure, it's those type of people that really have your back, because the message that they portray to you, it may have poor delivery. And sometimes with people saying things, it can be true, but they have poor delivery, because it's not just what you say, it's how you say it. So it's very important that, when you have those friends or those people in your life that tell you things that you need to hear, make sure they're telling it to you with love and not out of spite or out of, some type of agenda. So it could be anyone that that has your back or is there for you. And even if, some of us who may have prayer partners, some of us may not. But always remember, even if you don't have anyone, God is always your biggest cheerleader. He always pushes through for you. When you feel like nothing or no one is on your side, He is always there for you. Because believe it or not, even the things that He's spoken to you, God cannot lie. He always goes back to His word, and He sees through it. He watches over to see if that word that He's spoken to you is going to manifest. It is your job to believe it or not, because faith without works is dead. Yes, you could put the work in, but do you believe what God told you is going to happen? And sometimes you run to people that contradict what God says. Those are not the people that are advocating for you. You have to be careful and be mindful of people like that. And sometimes you may not be in the right season where you have people around you that are speaking life to you. When the girl died, there's a story in the Bible about the girl. She was 12 years old, and Jesus went in to basically bring her back. She had died, and everyone around her said that she died. And Jesus said, no, she's not dead. She's just sleeping. How many of you had dreams or had hopes and had plans or goals, and you had to lay them in a coffin. God can always revive them. He can always redeem them. He can always redeem you. It's important that you know that, because when God says something, when he speaks life into you, everything in you comes alive. And it's important that, when you don't have those people speaking life into you, you got to be your own cheerleader. Meaning, okay, what do I have to do? Let me write affirmations to myself and post them anywhere on the wall or in the mirror. So that way, when I wake up or when I run into them, I can see for myself what it is that I believe in my heart is going to come to pass. Because it's very important that you have those affirmations, not just written down, but you have to believe it in your heart that it is going to come to pass. Those are very important, vital things for you to remember. Whatever God has told you, it's always going to be a challenge. And I say that because you're going to get people that say different things. You are even going to challenge what God has said, because it's up to you to deep down really believe what he said he has for you. So you have to be your own cheerleader. I don't care if you have to read the Bible, you have to write down scripture, you have to pray it out, you have to go to him on your knees, you have to seek counseling, you have to talk to your therapist, you have to reach out to someone that you can trust. You have to find a way to make sure that you are speaking life, you are speaking hope to yourself, and making sure that you are surrounded with people that are speaking life and hope to you. It's very important that you keep that, because even when you get tired, you keep going, even when you don't feel like it. Because it's going to be days where you feel like you just want to give up. Like, oh, I've gone through this too long. Or nothing, I don't see anything, nothing isn't happening. You have to keep going. If God has told you to do something, you have to do it with the right attitude. Just because you don't see it done overnight doesn't mean it's not going to happen. Because I have my own personal story where God has promised me something and it didn't happen overnight. But because I went back and I kept rereading what he told me through scripture, and I kept it in my heart and I prayed about it, and I was consistent. And that's the thing. A lot of us are not consistent. We set a goal, and including me, we set a goal and we're so ramped up about it. And, we're so, just have that ambition, to have that ambition to go after it. But then in the middle of it, we get tired, we give up, or we forget about it, and we put it in the back of our mind, and then we put it on the shelf. And then each day goes by, and before you know it, it's a whole nother year that has gone by, and we never actually reach that goal because we've given up too early. So a lot of us, we lay our dreams to rest prematurely because we just didn't motivate ourselves, or we didn't have someone motivating us. And sometimes you don't need everyone else confirmation or affirmation to do what God has put inside of you to do. That's why I say you have to be your own cheerleader. It's important that you do that. What are some things that you think you can do in order to keep it going? You have to think about that. Because, it's important that even if you do have a support system, I'm going to say this, we survive longer when we have that support system, when we have someone there for us or with us, or even, let's just put it this way. Some people, they have more motivation to get out of the bed when they have something or someone to live for. We are never meant to be by ourselves. Even though you may go through seasons where you're by yourself, we are not meant to be by ourselves. And I love it because God always tells us he's still there. When everyone else has abandoned you, when they stop talking about you or talking about you behind your back, or they laughed at you, or they just basically written you off. God has always been there with you, even when you think he's not. And I say that because I'm a witness to that. And a lot of times we as people, we stay with someone for so long or deal with things for so long, and then we just kind of just walk away. And that's what we do. Is our human nature is to give up, or give up on people or things very easily, because we want to take the easy way out. And it sucks, but it happens. So who is left in your circle that has been with you since day one? Those are your ride or dies, because those are the people that are not only going to tell you the truth, but they're going to stick with you and stay by you. They may not call you every day, but they're going to check on you and be like, hey, are you okay? Do you need anything? Do you need me to pray for you? Those are the people that you want sticking around you, because they don't have a hidden agenda. We as people, we can tend to be narcissistic, meaning, not sometimes intentionally and other times not intentionally, because we're so busy, thinking about our world, while we're in the world, and we don't really try to reach out as much, especially these days. We don't reach out. I see a lot of people, they're sitting, together at a restaurant or some type of outing, and everyone has their head down in their phone. No one's interacting with one another. We're together, but we're also apart. And it's more prevalent now because, we have all these social media platforms. And that's the downside of having them, because instead of actually us living in the moment, we're just living to look at other people's lives instead of living our own. And that's the downside of having social media. The flip side of it, the upside of having social media, is that we are able to connect even to people across the world, worldwide, global, and be able to relate on a matter or issue that, is familiar with all of us. So that's the upside of having social media. But you cannot get your support system always from social media, because it's going to be some days where it's just going to be you. And you're going to have to face yourself, look at yourself in the mirror and say, am I going to do this or not? You have to advocate for yourself. It's going to be days where, you don't hear anything. You may not hear a word from God, or you may not hear those words of encouragement from others. So you have to, within yourself, believe that whatever it is that you put your mind to, whatever God has told you, whatever he's put inside of you, whatever you're trying to accomplish, you have to do it. If it's what you are called to do, if you are in alignment. And that's very important, to be in alignment with God. Because if your head is off, your whole body gets thrown off. So that is important to remember. And stay in peace. Sometimes you're going to have, when you're in the middle of the storm, and I remember this like it was yesterday, when I was going through a terrible storm. And sometimes when you're going through storms, some of them, they almost debilitate you. You're crying, you're upset, you don't know what to do. You don't know how to explain it to other people, because they won't be able to relate. Or you're going through something that no one else has gone through. And it's going to be okay, because you know why? That breakthrough, when you're out of that storm, you know what to say to someone who may have gone through the same thing. Because you don't have storms just so you can sit there and cry and boo-hoo, feel sorry for yourself. Sometimes we go through storms just so we can reach out to others and leave that door open and say, hey, if I've gone through it, you can go through it too. You are the leader maybe that is going to be the first person in your family maybe to break a generational curse. You may be the first person to do something that no one in your family has been able to do. But because you are the first one to maybe go through that, God has given you just enough strength to get through it because he saw your way out. And a lot of times, people, when they commit suicide, they kill their past, but they're also killing their destiny because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Yes, tomorrow is never promised to us, but that is not up to us to decide that. So you have to, to me, it's selfish because it's like, what did you give to the world? You have all these gifts and these talents, but you didn't share it with everyone because you're too busy thinking about, and I say this respectfully, you're thinking about yourself. You're thinking about, oh, boo-hoo, woe is me. And yes, we all go through things, but what did you contribute, to others? And while we're living, we have to remember that. So people who are going through things or feel like they're by themselves or they're going through things that they don't understand and you've gone through it, you can reach out and say, hey, whatever it is that you can use whatever platform, whether it be social media, whether it be, in your business, whether it be whatever it is that you choose to express, those gifts and talents that God has given to you in order to encourage other people. I say this to people who are going through any kind of storm right now. You're going to get through it because if I can get through it, you can do it too. When you read the Bible, you look at all the stories and the people that went through those things. I always have to remember God got the victory at the end because there never was a person throughout the Bible in each story that never had a victory. And the enemy may attack you because he knows you have something. Do you know what you have? Do you know what you possess? Do you know what's on the inside of you? Because if you don't, you have to discover that. And sometimes your weakness can be your greatest strength. Oh, I'm too sensitive. It doesn't matter because your sensitivity may be what somebody else needs in order for them to be delivered. You never know what you can use or what you have in order to set someone else free because yokes can be destroyed. Generational curses can be broken. You never know that. So it's always important to keep those things in mind. Stay at peace. What does that mean? Not only being your own cheerleader, but you have to be at peace. Be at peace with what God has told you because whatever he said to you, he's not going to lie about it. You may hear different things from different people, but what did God say to you? He is not a liar. His word never comes back to him void. In other words, he carries out his word just exactly as he said he was going to do it. The end, period. So you have to stay in that peace of mind. Yes, from the outside, it looks like all hell is breaking loose. From the outside, it looks like, I'm never going to get that promotion. I'm never going to get the job. I'm never going to own my own house. I'm never going to, clear this debt. I'm never going to get married. No. What did God say to you? What did he tell you? And whatever he told you, that was already confirmation. He may have given you a sermon to confirm what he said, but keep that in mind because it's going to be all kind of stuff being thrown at you. You're going to have distractions. And sometimes we have distractions that keep us from staying on the path that God wants us to take. Here comes somebody, oh, maybe you should do this. Nope, that's not what God said. Oh, it doesn't make sense. Why are you doing this A, B, and C or whatever? Are you sure you can do it? Do you have what it takes? Yes, I do. And thank you, but next. In other words, okay, keep going. Move. I politely tell you, to the left, as Beyonce say, you're going to have to stay focused on what God tells you to do. Like I said, sometimes you're going to get distracted, but you have to remember, those words of affirmation. If you're looking for encouragement, go through the scriptures, write those scriptures down, and put them on your wall, put them on your mirror. Pray over what God has told you or what He's telling you, and be obedient. And that's part of it as well, because when we're not obedient, it makes God's promises kind of delayed, because oftentimes we want to do things our own way instead of doing it His way. Like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to get to this faster if I do this. Okay, go ahead and do it. See what happens. But then you're going to have to suffer the consequences, because maybe God has something greater and bigger for you. But because you took that unnecessary step, it's going to set you back a little bit, because you didn't do it the way He did it. You did it the way you wanted to do it, because you were too busy looking at other people. Oh, well, they have this. Or I chose this person, now I'm going to marry him. And then a year after, you're getting a divorce because now you can't stand each other. That was maybe not the person you were meant to marry. Or I have this house and I bought it, but you can't afford it. So you're struggling every single month, working 2 jobs to pay for a house that you were never meant to have. Oh, I love this car, I'm going to get it. Okay, well, now you're in debt, and you're using credit cards to pay off your other debt. And so now you're even more bigger debt. Or I'm going to go ahead and try to open my own business. Or I'm going to go ahead and do this and do that. Go ahead and do it. But if it's not aligning what God told you to do, it's not going to happen the way He wants it to happen. Because now, on top of Him trying to make sure His promise comes to pass, He now has to go back and correct what you did because you took that unnecessary step. So that's what I mean when I say stay at peace. Because when we get frantic and when we get nervous or when we get impatient, we do things that does not make sense to God. It makes sense to us because we're too busy trying to please other people. Like, oh, when are you going to get this? And when are you going to get that promotion? And when are you going to get that job? Or when are you going to get this? Blah, blah, blah. Okay. So now here it is. You're trying to do everything you can because you're so anxious and nervous. Instead of staying in His peace and staying in alignment, you are doing things that are actually hindering you. Instead of you trying to let God move the mountains out of the way, you are building, what do they call it? You're making idols. You're building, you're making idols out of things that you don't really need. You are trying to compensate for something that you don't have. You're making credit, but there's nothing that you can pay for it. You don't have what it takes. You don't have anything to pay for it. You're applying for credit, but you can't pay it back. So you're compensating for things that you don't have in order to get what you want, instead of really trying to seek after what God wants. Because if He told you He's going to do something, He's going to do it. So that's what I mean by stay at peace. And it's important, again, to be your own advocate sometimes, because you're going to have people that tell you things that don't really align with what God has told you to do, because they want to see something that they have a different vision than what God has for you, in other words. Because their vision and what God's vision has for you is totally different. So I'm going to end with that, and I'm going to go ahead into this segment called Queenness or Queen Not. Now, today I have two different stories that I'm going to be talking about. One is, I think, is very important. In the news recently, our president had announced for vaccines to be mandated. And he mandated it for people who are working for the federal government, for people who are healthcare workers, and for staff and teachers, who work with children. And I thought it was really important because, he had given us a free choice for us to be vaccinated or not. And, it's our choice, but when we make choices, we don't just it's not affecting us, it's affecting other people as well. And that's what I mean. Sometimes we can be narcissistic without actually trying to be narcissistic. Because getting a vaccine does not also benefit you and benefits those around you. And yes, you have people that, want to debate with you about conspiracy theories and about, logic that doesn't make any sense. That's not even, backed up by science. It's just hearsay. Or you may not want to get it because you have health underlying issues. They've already covered that. The FDA approved it. So do I think it's queenness? Yes. I think it's very much queenness because you have children who are under 12 who currently are not able to get the vaccination. So if you have, say, for instance, if you get a breakthrough case or if you happen to get COVID or you are asymptomatic and you give it to one of the children, then that's going to affect them. So I think, me personally, I am over the debate. You get vaccinated for everything else. You get vaccinated for measles, mumps, and rubella, and then you get vaccinated for the flu, and then you get vaccinated. You get vaccinated for all kind of stuff. But when it comes to this, people want to make it a political issue. When you see people dying all over the world, it is not a political issue. It is a disease, a sickness that cannot be cured unless you get the vaccine. And even if you do survive, you have more underlying issues than you had before. I've heard people in the news, they've had, organ transplants. They had double lung transplants because their sickness was so severe. You don't know how your body is going to handle being that sick because it's being introduced to something new. Your immune system does not recognize it. So what happens is it's going to try to fight it off as much as it can, but because it does not recognize the illness, it's going to pretty much overtake your body, which has happened many times before, as we see on the news, and people were dying left or right. So yes, I think it was mandatory for me. I think he had every right to exercise that power to go ahead and make it mandatory that people get vaccinated. Because why are we 2 years into a pandemic and cases are getting worse? They jumped up to 300% alone this month. Beds are filling up quickly. And if you have, say, for instance, a broken shoulder or, you have cancer or you're trying to get a diagnosis, you can't even get in or if you need a treatment, you can't even get into the hospital good because they are prioritizing COVID patients over patients that have other ailments and illnesses and sickness and things of that matter. So do I think it was queenness? Yes, I do. It showed his leadership skills because, he gave us a choice for that moment. But, when you have healthcare workers going on the news saying they're exhausted, they're begging, pleading people to get vaccinated. They're, advertising it. They're giving stipulations for people to get vaccinated. I think it's very important. That says a lot, because why should I have to beg you to live? So I think it was very Queenish. Other people may debate me on that. That's fine. I don't care. If you have a different opinion, you can leave it in the comment section. Or maybe you agree with me. You can also leave that in the comment section. Or maybe you have a story related to people, to someone that you know, or someone that's close to you that has not been vaccinated or didn't get vaccinated and they're sick right now in the hospital. So I'm going to move on to the next story. And speaking of support system, I thought this was very, very admirable that the cast of, and some of the former cast of Real Housewives of Atlanta went to Greg Leake's funeral, which is Nene Leake's husband. And he recently passed away from colon cancer. Now, I know a lot of the cast members were not, eye to eye with Nene Leakes. And if any of you have watched, any of the housewives, particularly with Nene Leakes, then you know how she is and how she interacted with the other characters. But when it came down to, her late husband and him passing away, there was no question and doubt that they all showed up and supported, her and her husband's passing. And I think that says a lot, because, when something tragic happens, people tend to push their own agendas or their own arguments aside, or whatever, or their feelings aside, in order to come together for a greater cause. And that was to, show up for his funeral. So I think that was very Queenish of them to do that. There was no, drama there while they attended, which shouldn't be, because, a lot of times, when we have weddings or funerals, people decide that they want to act a fool. So in this particular situation, I'm just glad that everything, was pretty much put together nicely, and it ran smoothly as it should have been. And maybe, you were the type of person that had to do the same thing for someone else. And you felt, you know what, I'm just going to put my feelings aside and go ahead and support this person, regardless of how I feel, or, whatever they have done, in order to be there for them. So if you have a story relatable, leave that also in the comment section. And that's all I have for you in this segment, Queenish or Queen Not. Okay, so we're going to go back to the subject, being your own cheerleader. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. So there's 4 things I want you guys to remember. Who is advocating for you? Do you have a support system? Who is in your support system? And what do you do if you don't have one? So I'm going to kind of recap what I said earlier. Being your own cheerleader, being your own advocate, speaking words of affirmation, praying about it, seeking counsel, talking to someone, talking to a professional, recognizing who is in your support group. Do you have one? If you don't have one, it's okay. Like I said before, if you feel the need that you need to talk to a counselor about anything, there are services that are provided with, I'm pretty sure many affordable choices, for you in case you're on a budget, or anyone at your church, anyone close that you can trust, that you can talk to. And even if you don't have anyone right now, be your own cheerleader, because you don't want to go around, you tell someone or tell anyone that has a different agenda than you. Because sometimes people say things to you out of spite. Oh, get over it. Like, why don't you just grow up? Like, it's not that big of a deal. To them, it's not big of a deal, or they want you to hurry up and be happy. That's not unrealistic, because it's a process. Whenever you're going through a storm, sometimes it takes more than a night to get through it. The scripture says, weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. Your morning may be 5 months from now, or 3 months, or a year, and sometimes even 2 or 5 years. But always remember, storms never last. They're temporary. Like I said before in one of my episodes, even when you do see a storm, the sun is always going to be there. It's going to shine. Because it doesn't go away just because there's storm clouds. That's what you see right now. But when it's over, when it has passed by, the sun is still going to be there. And know that everything is going to be okay. And sometimes, when you have people around you that don't support you, they are going to leave. And then when everything is good and peachy, they come back up. Or they come back around and be like, hey, girl, how's it going? Are you doing okay? That's good. God bless you. I'm so glad you went through it, whatever. If you need anything. Now, where was you at the whole time I was going through the storm? No, ma'am. Those are flaky friends. You don't need them. No. And sometimes you have friends that just say stuff just to make up stuff. They just say stuff at the top of their head. They don't even know what they saying. They just saying stuff just to fill in the void. You shouldn't be listening to them either. Because if they haven't gone through it, they cannot minister to you. Anybody that has gone through something that you're going through, listen to their testimony. Hear what they have to say. How did they get through it? Because if they're still standing and they're still alive, then you know that the storm did not get to them. What did they do while they were in that storm in order to get out of it and still be standing on their 2 feet? Listen to what they have to tell you. I'm not talking about people who did something that was so desperate that, they were trying to get out of the situation. No, not those type of people. I'm talking about people who endured through the storm, who are a living, breathing testimony, who are a witness to what you are going through and be able to tell you and give you some advice and encouragement. Listen to those type of people. And that's all I have for this episode of Queen's Corner Podcast. And I will see you in the next episode. Until then, I say adieu and goodbye.